Hello and welcome to The Nest. My name is Cecilia Mweni, and on this program, we demystify parenthood. What is parenthood? Is it something that we learn from what we read from the books, or is it something that we have to experience to know what it's all about? Well, do join me on today's topic where we get to know how do we know our baby. And joining me on the program is our wonderful, beautiful guest.
Thank you, Cecilia, for having me in the show. My name is Susan Kinuthia. I'm a mother of 2 boys, 8 years and 5 years.
Wow, 2 boys.
2 boys.
8 and 5.
Yes.
That must be a task.
It gets easier by the day.
Okay. So let's talk about your first time experience when you had the baby. How was that?
It was surreal. Everything you think about when you're pregnant and what you experience when the baby finally gets here are 2 different things. First of all, he was so small, and the doctor had said I was going to get a 3.5 kilo baby, but he was a mere 2.7. So first of all, when I saw him, I thought he was so tiny, and I wondered how I was going to handle him. Yes.
I'm trying to think, this is you living your life as, this one person, just you and your husband, and then suddenly there's this little young man that comes into your life. How was that first feeling of, you're now a parent? Did you feel like you're an expert? I know we read books, and there's this new, there's this website, what is it called? Baby Center. Yes. So tell me about your experience with Baby Center and what is the real thing?
I joined it early. The first month, I was already a Baby Center mom. And I felt prepared because I had read widely, and I was so sure I was just going to ace this motherhood thing. Yes. But then, the baby is an individual, and you can't really tell them what to do or how to act. So there are all these things that came as a surprise. Like, first of all, my baby had colic and would cry every day, like an alarm clock, from 9 p.m. to 10 p.m. Yes. Every day, and no matter what I did, he would not stop crying. Yes. So after a while, it just became background noise. So I would actually just, hold him, because I know he's fed. I have changed the baby. He is fine. He's not too hot. He's not cold. After making sure he's fine, I would just hold him, and I would just maybe even watch something, and exactly at 10 o'clock, he would stop crying.
Wow. Okay. So was it the same way for the first and the second one?
No, my second baby never cried at all. For the first year, it was so peaceful. I remember when the day he was born, there were so many babies crying in the ward, and after they were taken to the nursery, some of the ladies there were commenting, hey, at least we can sleep because there is no baby in the ward today. But he was there, and he did not cry. The whole year, between birth and 1 year, he never cried. He was just this peaceful baby, and he loved feeding. Just that now we had some other issues that came up.
Yes.
I was not able to breastfeed him properly. And this was me being a second-time mother, not a first-time mother, and I could not understand how can I not be able to breastfeed a baby, yet this is my second time as a mom. So we tried everything. I went to hospital. I always had cracked nipples. I developed even, engorged breasts. Yes. So finally, the doctor told me that maybe I should put the baby on formula because my nipples were getting infected. And I didn't learn until my baby was 3 years old that actually he had a tight tongue.
Oh.
So he could not be able to latch, and that's why we struggled with breastfeeding so much. But when even all the clinic visits and when the pediatrician received the baby after birth, all the doctors missed it. That was my first experience with a tongue-tied case. Actually, I thought being tongue-tied was a figure of speech,
yes,
not an actual condition that you experience.
When you say tongue-tied, what does that mean? Can you explain to the viewers what that meant?
What that meant is there's a membrane yes, under the tongue. Yes. That's the one that holds the tongue down. It was grown almost to the tip of the tongue, meaning that the baby was not able to stick out his tongue or fold it.
Oh, okay.
The tongue was being held down, that it was being tied.
Yes.
So he could not be able to stick out his tongue and latch. That is what it means to have a tongue tied.
Trying to think, as a first time, not a first time, I'm a second time mom. One of the distressful things was a tongue tie. Your baby is not breastfeeding. What else was there that really threw you off, that you never had read about from Baby Center and all these other books that you were reading?
I would say it was constipation after weaning the baby. And no matter how much water, liquids I tried to give the baby, I struggled to get a diet that worked for the baby. I tried pumpkins, I would be told, oh, try these. And I tried on so many diets before the baby's stomach finally would digest properly. So for me, that really bothered me. That the baby would always have a stomach ache. We went to hospital so many times just trying to get a proper diet. The doctors would tell me, you need to give the baby some water now because you've weaned. And at some point I thought I had actually maybe given the baby too much water, as in I thought there were even, maybe he had water retention, because now the diaper changes were on the,
On the high.
Yeah, on the high.
Yes.
And I would be told, if this baby is still breastfeeding, if you're still giving the baby milk, then you don't need to give them so much water. But then just getting a proper diet for the baby and just making, sorting out the constipation issue was, it threw me off. Especially because I could not wait to cook for the baby.
Yes.
And I was all out with these nice recipes. I had googled everything, something different every day, and I would cook it with passion, and then the baby just wouldn't, they didn't want to eat it because they used to associate eating with the constipation, so they just didn't want to eat.
So what I'm getting from you, Sue, it's that it all boils down to getting to know your baby.
Yes.
They are individuals, they're not the same.
True.
The firstborn was not the same as the secondborn.
No, two different people.
Okay, that's why we have different fingerprints, right?
I guess so.
Well, in the next segment, our resident expert, Esther, will be joining us to discuss this and much more.
And to be able to suckle well, you need that rolling of the tongue so that the baby can suckle.
Okay, I mean, that's a bit distressing for me as somebody who's, okay, well, I've not had the same experience, but I'm just thinking, what else is there that kids, newborns have that we're probably clueless about, that is not really picked up on as fast as it's meant to be? So welcome back to The Nest, and I'm joined by Esther, our resident expert, and Sue Kinuthia, who is a parent of 2 boys. So before the break, Esther, we were speaking about knowing your baby, and Sue had brought out the issue about tongue tie. Yes. Maybe you can just expound a little bit on what that is.
So there's this space, we call it a frenulum, the space between the tongue and the chin. So that small membrane that's right there is called a frenulum. Okay. So for some people, it is too thick. So what happens, the baby cannot roll their tongue. And to be able to suckle well, you need that rolling of the tongue so that the baby can suckle. So what happens if a baby has that, then you will have a constant poor latch and constant pain and the baby really can't get full because they're not able to finish the motion of suckling. Okay. But this is a very, very easy situation to be in because all it takes is a doctor just snipping. In fact, they do it with just local anesthesia and they snip it and voila, you actually breastfeed immediately. It's done to calm the baby. But unfortunately, it's not usually diagnosed so well. So it's important sometimes to seek help from a lactation consultant, like what I do. That's part of our training. So if you go to the doctors and you're always having this, you've tried to perfect the latch, but you're still having that pain, sometimes go a step further and look for a breastfeeding counselor or a lactation consultant. They will look and then they can connect you to the doctors who will be able to deal with the tongue tie.
Yours took how many years?
3 years. It took 3 years.
Yeah.
So at some point I stopped breastfeeding when the infections got too much. And we were on formula for a year. And it's not until my son started attempting to talk.
The sounds that help you need to lift your tongue to say.
Yes.
Then you'll find the baby can't say, some of those words. And that's when now, for some people, that's when they realize that there's a problem.
Okay. I mean, that's a bit distressing for me as somebody who's, okay, well, I've not had the same experience, but I'm just thinking, what else is there that we probably, that kids, newborns have, that we're probably clueless about, that is not really picked up on as fast as it's meant to be?
And some of these things are like, for example, if a baby might have an issue with a disorder, Say sometimes they might be deaf, or they might be blind. Sometimes it's easy to see, but deaf, because sometimes you just find the baby is quiet.
Yes.
So it's good to have your baby tested for hearing, or at least if you notice that your baby does not, jump at loud sounds. Because sometimes you just think, oh, my baby just sleeps so peacefully. They don't, So that's one of the ones that you really need to follow up and see, is there a problem with my baby's hearing? And they will do a test and find out if there's a problem.
Let's also talk about things like jaundice, for example. Is it something that we should dismiss? Is it something we should be worried about?
It's something to be aware about. So jaundice is at different levels. So jaundice is basically your babies, when a baby is born, their liver has to take over the work of, cleaning the blood. And so what happens, what you call bilirubin, which is basically the dirt in the blood, builds up, and that will give the yellowness of the skin. So most babies, when they are born, will naturally have that, a mild case. And if it happens on the first 2 days of life, then it's usually something to worry about. And usually it will be picked up in the hospital, and the doctors will deal with it. But some babies get it on day 3, day 4 when you go home. And there's a simple solution. Take them out to the sun, expose them. The UV rays, the photo rays, which is actually the treatment for jaundice, helps the baby be able for the liver to become more efficient, and so it clears the jaundice. So it's good for moms to be aware, because if the levels build up in the body, then they poison the baby system, and they become toxic, and now the baby will become unwell.
Okay.
Your baby can get fever, they can have liver failure, it can become extremely dangerous if the levels are very high.
We need to be sort of experts as moms. Get baby fasting check. Is there jaundice? Secondly, is there a tongue tie, or is there do we need to become experts?
In the days of our mothers, my mother tells me that when she got pregnant, when she went for clinics, they would be sat down and they would be told this and this and this and this. But I think that has kind of changed, especially in the advent of private doctors. And most of us don't attend these clinics that actually educate moms. So if you're in that situation, you probably need to get, either attend a childbirth class, because these are things that are taught before, or attend, at government clinics. These talks still go on. So sometimes maybe, attend your clinics there. You're going to have this education so that if there's a problem within the first few days of your baby's life, you're able to pick up on it.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, did you go for any of the classes?
No, I didn't. But I bought books, and also I was. I usually say I was a Google mom. Like I would Google everything that happened to the baby, and any signs, any symptoms, anything, any information I wanted, I would Google and and diagnose it myself. And if I see it's serious, then I would go to hospital. But I can say actually just looking for information out there and reading was very helpful to me. Some things I solved them just by myself, from reading from other people's experiences, joining forums with other mothers online.
So picking up on what Sue has talked about on her Googling, I don't know, maybe you can tell us from the expert point of view, is there a downside doing that? Because sometimes we also become experts as mom and overdiagnose, right?
Yes. Or sometimes you can get wrong information because there's so much out there. So it's good, depending on what the situation is. They're simple things like my baby is crying, what can I do? That's easy. But when it comes to health issues, like maybe your baby is actually showing a certain symptom, it's never good to diagnose, because you might just do the wrong thing. It was a serious thing, and then you end up we've had moms having babies who are really dehydrated, and they were Googling about why the baby is vomiting, and they stay home, and then we have a baby's kidneys failing because of dehydration. So I think it's gauge what the information is about. It can also really scare a mom. So you Google one symptom and it gives you some other scary things, and then you're fearful, and then now you're always taking the baby to hospital because you've read about all this. So there should be a balance in terms of talking to your healthcare provider, but also it's good information out there. There's still some very good sites, and also maybe trying to look at what are the credible sites that you're going. Not every site is credible. So like I think you talked about Baby Center. We know that's a credible source of information. So you want to look at such sites and not just, locally we have other sites that are are common, like Baby Banda and Mom's Village. So there's some local, also with localized information, that you will find some credible information. Yeah.
I think there's so much we need to watch out for when it comes to parenting, and of course, as our guest has said, we're not experts when it comes to parenting. Maybe you, as a viewer at home, you can tell us what was your first experience like? What did you see that shocked you, that made you run to hospital, and then the doctor tells you, oh, don't worry, this is nothing, or what because we've had such incidences when you run to the hospital and the doctor says hapa hakuna kitu yoyote, mtoto yuko sawa, and we've googled, but we're so worried about it, and we've diagnosed for ourselves. So you can send us your views on how you got to learn your baby. Please do send us your views on this program. We're taking a short break, but we'll be back with more from our guests. Thank you.
But we also have another set of babies who have eczema. Now, eczema is an allergic kind of reaction from the body. You'll even see a small baby trying to eat themselves, and of course they can't. Yes. It's heat rash.
Of course.
Because of all the boshoris and the swaddling, baby has 5 layers of clothes, so they get too hot.
Welcome back. We've been talking about how to know your baby, and before the break we were discussing some of the things that make us rush to hospital that we didn't need actually to rush to hospital about. Maybe we can expound on that and get to know, when the baby has got rashes. Let's talk about rashes actually. Yes. Do we run to hospital for all sort of rash that we see?
No, because that's very common, and the most common rash that our Kenyan babies get is heat rash.
Of course.
Because of all the boshoris and the swaddling, baby has 5 layers of clothes, so they get too hot, so they get heat rash. So heat rash usually is spread all over, maybe the face, the back, and they're very small rashes. But if those rashes suddenly look, I call it angry. They suddenly look like they have pus inside, or they look like they are inflamed, then it usually means those rashes are infected. So then you do need to see the doctor. But if they're just the rashes and they just look like the normal color of the baby's skin, then you don't need to go to hospital. We also have infant acne, where a baby will actually, just like teenagers do, there's a lot of hormonal changes. So infants will get acne, and it looks just, the same way the acne looks, and you'll have some spots maybe around the cheeks and around the mouth. But it usually will clear, and usually it's brought on by maybe using products that the baby is reacting to. It could be heat, it could just be the baby's natural system just getting used to the hormones. But we also have another set of babies who have eczema. Now, eczema is an allergic kind of reaction of the body, and it is genetic. So it's something that the baby is born with, gotten from either dad or mommy. And so with eczema, usually it's brought on, it's an allergic reaction. So the baby is reacting to something. So it could be the soaps, it could be even the clothes the baby is wearing, it could be heat, it could be what mommy is taking. So through breastfeeding, the baby is reacting. So usually with eczema, the skin looks rough and scaly, and will peel, and it will be inflamed, and baby will be very itchy. You'll even see a small baby trying to eat themselves, and of course they can't, and they're uncomfortable. So with eczema, there are some medication that you can use, but the best way to control eczema, because you can only control it, it's a condition that the baby will live with for the rest of their life, is basically to try and figure out what the baby's reacting with, and then deal with that.
Listening to you, I'm just thinking, maybe Sue, you could tell us maybe what was that thing that you didn't expect to find that made you rush to the hospital and didn't need to rush there.
Oh, for me it was mostly fever. I would always rush to hospital because of fever. I know maybe that's the most common reason why new mummies rush to hospital, but then you just want to know that the baby is not, as in the fever is not too much, you don't know what's happening. So for me, fever is the one thing that made me go to hospital all the time. But right now, unless it hits 39, we stay put. Yeah, I just give them some paracetamol.
Okay. You had an experience with eczema also?
Yes, I had an experience with eczema. Both my boys have eczema. I also have eczema, and we take it from my mom. Even my other members of my family do have eczema, and it's something that actually have been dealing with since the babies were really small. And I even got to start making products. Like she was saying that it could be anything. I came to realize ours was more perfume related, soaps, fragrance, and things like those, more than diet. So we have actually been able to, I've been able to get not a total solution, but to manage it by using natural products on the baby skin, and also on us, on the whole family. We use natural products, and that has kept the creams at bay, because if you constantly use steroid creams on a baby's skin or even your own skin, then it wears it off, and then you can even get acne, steroid-induced acne.
Wow.
Yes.
Oh, we clearly have more experts in this show.
Yes, she's an expert.
Clearly.
Yeah.
So, what about, I've heard of people talking about having a baby having swollen breasts.
Yes. So the swollen breasts and the discharge, that's a very common questions we get from moms. Not all babies get it, but you will just notice as you're dressing your baby that the breasts look swollen. It can be either boy or girl, and this is actually caused by the mother's hormones circulating in the baby's body. So you don't do anything. Some people will try and press the breasts, try and press out the liquid. No, don't touch it. You just allow it. The inflammation will go. By around 6 weeks, the baby's chest will be flat again. For little girls and even some boys, you might see some pinkish discharge in the diaper. And for girls, we say it's a mini period. Again, it's hormonal, and it's like they have their little fast period at that point. And then for boys, it will come through the urine. Again, it is hormonal. So you don't need to worry, don't need to rush to hospital. For that, it clears within a few days. And then the baby is back, and you won't see the discharge. Little girls also get some discharge. Again, that is normal.
Thank you so much, Esther Kimani and Sue Kinuthia, for joining us today. I have learned so much. I don't know about you, the viewer, what you've learned. What's new? What would you want us to share on the program? Please do share your experiences. Let us know, what have you been going through? What have you been rushing to hospital for?
If your baby has a stuffy nose, they may breathe through their mouth, which can make it harder for them to feed. To give them relief, a saline solution and nasal suction bulb come in handy as a quick, easy and pain-free remedy. So include this bulb in your list.
So remember to get in touch with us. Our contacts are on your screen. My name is Cecilia Mweni, and this has been The Nest, only on CTN.
Do you have baby stuff you want to sell or swap? WhatsApp us on the number on your screen with clear photos of the items.